before we head into the intermission, and it is my job to keep this show exciting and on target so we can have commercial breaks during the 10-minute intermission, I think. I don't know if that's the case, but that's usually what happens during the intermission. The fourth presenter today, our fourth entrepreneur, is from WPI. It's a business called 360energy, and it empowers green industrialization in Southeast Asia by providing affordable and reliable energy-as-a-service solutions for Indonesia's $12 billion aquaculture industry. Remember, you had to take some notes on that. You're going to have to give that back to me in a minute. Would you please put your hands together from WPI for the founder of 360energy, Kemal Rifky.
First of all, I apologize for the word sandwich. Thank you for saying that. And here is a 1/15 scale model of our power plant, just for reference. And just get back into position. So I want you to picture a farm. Not a field with rolling hills of corn or wheat in middle America, but, how do you go back? The back one. But a field, but of ponds in a village in rural Indonesia. So I want you to introduce you to Mr. Sumarna. He's a rural smallholder fish farm in West Java, Indonesia, one of 2.5 million throughout Indonesia's $12 billion aquaculture industry. Farmers like Mr. Sumarna are having a big problem. Every single harvest cycle, they lose 40 to 50% of their yield. Why? Because of energy-intensive farming equipment, particularly the lack of these equipment. It might seem simple. Why not just get them the equipment? Problem is, without access to grid power, they can only depend on expensive and polluting diesel generators. Diesel generators that would take 20% of their expenses just for the fuel cost without the initial cost of the system. So farmers, at the same time, Indonesia is home to a large potential for renewable energy. We are home to the world's second largest hydroelectric potential, but only 7% of this has been tapped. At the same time, around these farms are abundant potential for hydropower. Look at the river next to the farm you were just looking at, right? Farmers need an energy solution that is technically scalable, financially accessible, and environmentally sustainable. As a result, we've developed the Moped microgrid, a scalable micro hydro power system that can power rural industries 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Within the core of Moped is the gravitational water vortex power plant. We've partnered with the Indonesian Research and Innovation Agency together with local manufacturing industries to be able to develop a proprietary vortex system that can be implemented in country and manufactured in country. See, when compared to diesel prices at 13 cents per kilowatt, our solution is much more affordable when compared to the other renewable energy solution, solar, at 16.5 cents per kilowatt hour. It's almost 4 times as expensive. See, micro hydro, unlike solar or wind, is an intermittent power source. It's a baseload power source. It's not intermittent. It can generate power consistently throughout day, throughout night, right? At the same time, our hydroelectric system, unlike traditional hydropower systems, don't require dams or penstock. It is a run-off-the-river system, right? Which minimizes capital requirements. But how do you access the 2.5 million farms, you ask? That's why we've established a partnership with eFishery, a $1 billion startup digital cooperative that connects 300,000 smallholder farms to exporters and essential services. Our partnership will allow smallholder farmers to buy equipment from vendors, to sell their goods to exporters through the app, which they've already been doing for the past 10 years through the eFishery app, and now buy energy services through energy leasing through their app. We are working to upgrade these farms, not only to produce more, but to produce more in a sustainable way, truly sustainable. We've already built 2 systems with customers, right? So for example, in Mr. Sumarna's farm in West Java province, We've increased his tilapia fish production by 250% and reduced emissions by 27 tons every single year, right? Through integrations of aerator and cold storage systems. When we look at our competitors for our energy solutions, we can look at 4 other competitors. The first is Turbulent, a Belgian-based hydroelectric turbine manufacturer that, while affordable, is not accessible. They simply do not have any manufacturing capacity in Southeast Asia, more or less Indonesia, right? Second is Surya, one of the many solar energy service providers in Indonesia. They focus on developing rooftop solar systems in cities, not in rural areas. Because in cities, they can benefit off net metering, they can sell back to the grid. And our old friend, the diesel generator. While accessible, is not at all affordable, and at the same time, environmentally disastrous. So why not the grid, you might ask, right? So PLN is the grid. While affordable, their systems, their grid transmission, they simply do not have high capacity transmission lines in rural areas to support these industries. That's why our approach aims to provide them accessible and affordable energy systems. We've identified a serviceable obtainable market of 80 million across 1,600 deployments in aquaculture farms operated by eFishery and the next 9 largest distributors. Our business model is pay-as-you-go in order to enable zero upfront cost energy as a service for these farmers. We've made eFishery our first distribution partner in order to tap into their network of 300,000 farms. In terms of the pricing strategy, our electricity leasing price is at 8.7 cents per kilowatt hours. This means a 35% reduction in energy spending for farmers, a 7% boost in their operational margin. But for us, this means a 47% profit margin with a 2.6 years break-even point. These are our financial projections. We're projecting 3.5 million in net revenues across the next 7 years with those deployments. And this is our team in Indonesia and in the US, and our advisory board and partners that had made all of this possible. For you sharks, we are putting 2 offers on the table. First, $10,000 to electrify 200 customer farms through the pre-construction of 2 power plants, which this is how it's broken down. And the second is a $30,000 ask to electrify 1,000 customer farms through the pre-construction of 10 power plants. Thank you.
Kemal Rifky from WPI 360energy.
Can you just explain quickly what's the pre-construction of the plants mean? How far does that get you?
Yes.
What is that?
Great. So there's 5 steps to building a power plant, from identifying a potential site to actually construction, right? The construction is obviously the CapEx intensive phase, right? Before that, it's very limited. So it's everything from an internal feasibility study, both technical, financial, and also environmental, and then external project audits. And so the project audits and the permitting is where most of the money will come from, because identify potential sites, that will be a lot of surveys, but out of all the surveys, only a certain percentage will go to the next step, right? So that'll get us 80% of the way there. And once we do have a project portfolio, we could bring that to a bank because we have all the permitting required. We've already gone through this process twice already, right?
So what's your greatest obstacle at this point? I mean,
Yeah.
who, when you get into, you have a number of the diesel engines in there is solar, I assume there are those competitors. Now I saw the grid, but I'm thinking, you go out to the rural farms and everything else, who's out there?
Yeah, so here's the thing. There's a lot of energy as a service companies. A lot of them are doing solar. A lot of them are doing wind. Not in Indonesia, we have no wind, but in other countries. But no one is doing micro hydro because they think it's an old technology, right? Particularly in Indonesia, where there's not a lot of the adoption of new research. So we're trying to do something that not a lot of people have been doing in Southeast Asia, but there's definitely a lot of experimentation done around the EU, right? So we think this is a model that is very scalable in the region.
So the numbers that you're tossing out, I have to say, one of the things that occurred to me is if you start increasing their production by 250%,
Yeah.
what's the chance they'll start to fish out from some of the smaller rivers, streams, or I'm just curious. I mean, it's been happening in Alaska, it's been happening in South America. That was the first thing that struck me. I could see all the fish.
Sure. So your question is that fishing, overfishing?
Overfishing.
So this is not, so these are farming, so these are not fishing. So these are,
But still, in terms of the fish farms,
yes, yeah.
you
So,
feel they can produce that and not overfish and still produce.
so that's part of the thing that e-fishery is very much focused on in their ESG framework.
Right.
So we're more of the energy side and powering these farms.
Okay.
They've been in the industry for 10 years. We really trust them and how they partner with their farmers. That's why we want to go into aquaculture, because we see this distribution
Okay.
system that no one has really tapped.
And have you looked at working directly with the hydropower center to help you distribute, to help you get down there?
So you're talking to the grid?
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with the grid is that they don't care about, they really do not want to deal with any power generation below 10 megawatts. And for example, in the island of Java, they know there's about 365 megawatt potential of hydroelectric power. But these are distributed. These are not one Hoover Dam, right? So
Yeah.
they don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with that. They would help. We're in their incubator. They help in other ways, but they don't want to invest in it.
Okay, so they're not even in terms of collectively, when you start putting together all of these, it starts to be a larger number.
Yes. So.
But they're not at this point.
Yeah, they're not at this point, exactly. Definitely on the radar.
I think just as you're talking about, I love the idea that you're charging by the kilowatt hour for the farmers so that they can afford it, because that was one of my first questions and concerns. But in doing so, you turn it into being a very capital intensive business for you. So how much capital do you project you'll need access to in order to hit the numbers that you showed here so far?
That's a great question. Because, you know, I'll be frank with you. Like the systems that we are trying to build is about 35 kilowatt systems, right? Each of these systems can range about 32,000 per system to about 48,000, right? And so it really depends on the 4 steps that we're doing there. And the thing is, the way you brought up a very good point with the CapEx intensive part of it, but one way or the other, these industries in rural areas need to be powered, right? They need to be powered one way or the other. And right now, diesel is the best they got, and that's not a very good solution. So there is a hump there, right? For the CapEx intensive. And so that's why, you know, we're trying to do other ways of fundraising and really try to look at this problem creatively.
And I think to dovetail on what Brian said, so I'm looking at 2 scenarios here. What was it, $10,000 or $10,000
Yep.
or the $30,000, right? Mm-hmm. What does that get you? Yes, I agree with you. It does get you to that next level.
Yeah.
You get the surveys done. Then you can go to, you know, get a small business loan or
Exactly.
something to kind of do the capital expenditure.
Exactly.
I guess I looked at this and I said, why is that time not now? Because, you know, you're getting into the CapEx, you're having to buy, you're not going to be profitable. You're going to have to start paying back the money some way, somehow at that point in time. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering, to be able to get those the next 2, for example, online or whatever, going out to a small business loan now for all of this, and then the pull through to actually make this thing.
Great question, because I think based on our...
Sorry, it became cheaper as you scale that.
Yes. So we've spoken to a number of financial institutions about this, and what they really want to see is permits. They want to have permits on hand for us to get that injection, because a lot of companies are doing infrastructure projects. We're, you know, aggressively developing country, so a lot of infrastructure projects are being pitched, but you have to have the permits.
I snuck right up on you there. I'm sorry. All right, there are 2 separate asks. One is for the $10,000 for project development, and he also had an ask for $30,000. We'll have the Sharks talk amongst themselves for a little bit. What year are you at WPI? A junior, my goodness. You have a keen understanding of your competition in this market as well. How many hours do you think that you put into studying all of the competition in the market?
I mean, I have a great team, so that helps, you know.
You do. You came in here with an incredible core team and people who are surrounding you and helping you to become successful. This is a very intriguing ask here because it's sizable, right? It's sizable. The Sharks are thinking this over. What is it that the Sharks have to say?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, I think we were just having a brief sidebar, if you saw. We were talking about goth jewelry, just so you know, so you were secondary. But we did get to talk about you. And I think, first of all, it's very commendable, number one. Number two, you've road tested it, you've tried it, you've stood up two of these, and you've made, 250% increase in, the sustainable farming. I mean, that is just incredible. I think what we are struggling with is collectively, the three of us, even if we came together, we couldn't get you to ask one or ask two. And then we just struggle because it's not going to get you where you need to be there. And I mean, for that reason, it has nothing to do with the program. I'm personally out.
I was going to say the fact that what we have is it can't create an impact, which is what we're looking for. At least give you some measure of getting to where you want to go. I would love to be able to look at more groups or other places that we might need to go, and so perhaps maybe collectively outside of this, if we can put our heads together and come back
Absolutely.
and say that there are other places we could direct you. That much we'd like to look at.
And I do have some execs in the energy business that I'm happy to put you in touch with.
So call that mentoring that may turn into dollars is probably what we can offer at this point.
Yeah, and I love that you've done the homework of already talking to the banks. I was going to say, there's a bank sponsoring tonight. Talk to them. And
During
get that-
intermission.
Get that kind of feedback, right? So I think that would be really great. I think you deserve to be here. Like, it's clear how you made it here, and I love the concept. I think I too am out for this forum, but that doesn't mean that there's not another better way forward for you guys from here.
As you can tell, there's not a lack of interest.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kemal Rifky from WPI 360 Energy.